Chosen one, God says the rebuilding of your faith did not begin the moment you felt strong again. It began in the middle of your weakness, during the nights when you cried silently and wondered if heaven still heard your prayers. There were moments when disappointment covered your heart like a heavy cloud. You prayed for answers but received silence. You trusted people who walked away. You believed for opportunities that never arrived. Deep inside, you started questioning whether your faith was enough or whether God had forgotten about you. But God says none of those painful moments were wasted. Even while you felt abandoned, heaven was carefully rebuilding the broken places within your spirit. Sometimes God allows seasons that shake your confidence because He wants to rebuild your faith on something deeper than emotions. Before this season, your faith may have depended on visible results, open doors, or immediate answers. But now God is teaching you to trust Him even when you cannot see the outcome. This is not weak faith anymore. This is mature faith. This is the kind of faith that survives storms, betrayal, delays, and uncertainty. The old version of your faith could only survive in comfort, but the new faith God is building inside you can survive in any condition. Chosen one, God says you thought you were falling apart, but spiritually you were being reconstructed. Every painful experience became part of your testimony. Every setback became a lesson. Every delay strengthened your patience. What the enemy meant to use against you, God turned into spiritual training. You are stronger now because you have survived situations that once would have destroyed you emotionally. The tears you cried in private were not signs of weakness. They were evidence that God was softening your heart while strengthening your spirit. There were times you wanted to stop praying because you felt unheard. There were moments when doubt whispered into your mind and told you nothing would ever change. But even then, God kept watching over you. Heaven never stepped away from your life. God says your faith was being purified, not punished. Just as gold is refined through fire, your spirit was being refined through trials. The pressure was uncomfortable, but it was producing endurance, wisdom, and spiritual maturity inside you. Chosen one, the faith God is rebuilding inside you now will carry you into rooms you once felt unqualified to enter. It will give you courage to walk through doors you once feared. It will help you trust God when circumstances do not make sense. This new faith is not based on what people say about you. It is based on what God has spoken over your life. People may have doubted you, ignored you, or underestimated your calling, but God never changed His mind about you. God says stop measuring your spiritual growth by how emotional you feel. Real faith is often built in quiet seasons. Sometimes faith grows strongest when nothing around you appears to be changing. While you were waiting, heaven was teaching you discipline. While you were struggling, heaven was teaching you perseverance. While you felt forgotten, heaven was preparing your breakthrough. Chosen one, there is a reason you survived everything that tried to destroy your peace. God protected your purpose even when you did not understand the process. The enemy attacked your confidence because your future carries power. But what God placed inside you cannot be erased by hardship. Your calling still exists. Your purpose is still alive. Your destiny is still unfolding. God says, do not return to fear now that your faith is growing again. Keep praying even when answers are delayed. Keep believing even when the road feels uncertain. Keep moving forward even when nobody understands your journey. The rebuilding happening inside you is sacred. Soon, you will realize that this difficult season was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of a stronger relationship with God. Chosen one, your faith is rising again. Not because life became easier, but because God became more real to you than your struggles. And the faith being rebuilt inside you now will become the foundation for every blessing, victory, and miracle that is about to enter your life. Chosen one, God says the greatest transformation happening in your life right now is not only around you, it is happening within your mind. Before heaven changes your circumstances, it begins by changing the way you think. The battles you have been facing internally were never meaningless. The confusion, overthinking, fear, and emotional pressure were signs that your old mindset was being challenged. God is rebuilding the way you see yourself, your future, and your purpose. For a long time, your thoughts may have been shaped by pain instead of promise. The words people spoke over you, the disappointments you experienced, and the failures you endured slowly created fear inside your mind. You began doubting your abilities. You questioned your worth. Sometimes you even wondered whether you were truly chosen for something greater. But God says those thoughts were never the truth. They were only the result of wounds that had not fully healed yet. Chosen one, God is removing the mindset that kept you trapped in limitation. You are no longer meant to live with constant fear of rejection, failure, or abandonment. Heaven is teaching you to stop seeing yourself through broken experiences and start seeing yourself through divine purpose. The enemy wanted your thoughts to remain chained to negativity because he understood that a defeated mind creates a defeated life. But God says your mind is awakening to a higher level of understanding. This season may feel uncomfortable because mental renewal requires separation from old thinking patterns. You cannot step into a new destiny while carrying the same mindset that kept you stuck in previous seasons. God is teaching you to release toxic beliefs about you. A self, the voice inside your head that constantly tells you that you are not enough, is losing its power. The fear that once controlled your decisions is beginning to weaken. The insecurity that once stopped you from moving forward is being replaced with confidence and clarity. Chosen one, God says your thoughts carry power. What you repeatedly believe about yourself eventually shapes your actions, your relationships, and your future. That is why heaven is being careful about what remains inside your mind. Some people had access to your emotions but brought negativity into your spirit. Some environments constantly drained your peace and strengthened your self-doubt. God is separating you from anything that destroys your mental and spiritual growth. There were moments when you felt mentally exhausted because you were carrying emotional burdens that were never meant to stay in your life forever. You replayed painful memories in your mind. You questioned why certain people betrayed you. You kept revisiting old failures and missed opportunities. But God says stop building your future around your past pain. What happened to you was real, but it does not define the person you are becoming. The renewed mind God is building inside you is stronger, calmer, and wiser. You are learning to think with faith instead of fear. You are learning to respond with peace instead of panic. You are learning to trust God even when your emotions feel uncertain. This transformation will change the direction of your life because once your mind changes, your entire perspective changes. Chosen one, God says you are entering a season where clarity will replace confusion. Things that once overwhelmed you emotionally will no longer have control over your peace. Situations that once caused anxiety will no longer shake your confidence. Heaven is strengthening your ability to remain focused despite distractions and opposition. Your spirit is becoming disciplined. Your thoughts are becoming aligned with purpose. Do not be discouraged if the process feels slow. Mental renewal happens day by day. God is patiently undoing years of fear, insecurity, and emotional damage. Some wounds affected your thinking more deeply than you realized, but heaven is healing you from the inside out. Every prayer, every lesson, every challenge, and every season of isolation has been part of this rebuilding process. God says protect your mind carefully during this season. Be mindful of what you listen to, who you surround yourself with, and what you allow to live inside your spirit. Not every voice deserves access to your thoughts. Your renewed mind is preparing you for responsibilities, blessings, and opportunities that require emotional stability and spiritual wisdom. Chosen one, the person you are becoming will no longer think like the person you used to be. God is rebuilding your mind so you can walk boldly into your future without fear, without confusion, and without doubting the calling placed upon your life. Your thinking is changing because your destiny is getting closer. Chosen one, God says there are wounds inside you that nobody else fully understands. Some pain was never spoken out loud because you learned how to hide it behind smiles, responsibilities, and silence. People saw your strength, but they did not see the emotional battles you fought in private. They did not hear the prayers you whispered while trying to hold yourself together. They did not see the tears you wiped away when disappointment became too heavy. But God says heaven saw everything, and healing has already begun in the deepest parts of your heart. Not every wound came from enemies. Some pain came from people you trusted the most. Some scars were created by rejection, betrayal, abandonment, or words that damaged your confidence over time. You tried to move forward, but certain memories continued to follow you. Certain experiences made you fearful of trusting again, loving again, or believing in you, ourself again. God says those hidden wounds affected more than your emotions. They affected the way you viewed life, relationships, and even your purpose. Chosen one, many times you blamed yourself for what happened. You replayed painful moments in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. You questioned your worth because someone failed to value your heart. You carried guilt from situations that were never fully your fault. But God says stop punishing yourself for battles that were meant to teach you, not destroy you. The enemy wanted your pain to become permanent, but heaven is turning your wounds into wisdom. The healing process may feel uncomfortable because God is bringing buried emotions to the surface. Things you tried to ignore are being exposed so they can finally be healed correctly. Sometimes God allows you to revisit certain emotions, not to hurt you again, but to free you from them completely. You cannot heal what you continue to hide. That is why this season feels emotionally intense. Heaven is removing poison that silently lived inside your spirit for too long. Chosen one, God says you are not weak because certain experiences affected you deeply. Even the strongest hearts become wounded after repeated disappointment and emotional pain. You spent so much time trying to survive that you forgot your soul also needed restoration. While you focused on helping others, encouraging others, and carrying responsibilities, your own heart quietly became exhausted. But God says your healing matters too. There were nights when loneliness felt overwhelming. There were moments when you questioned whether anyone truly understood your pain. Sometimes you became emotionally distant because it felt safer than being vulnerable again. But God says isolation was never meant to become your permanent home. Healing is teaching you that not everyone who enters your life will harm you. The pain of your past should not steal the joy of your future. Chosen one, G. Odd is healing the wounds caused by rejection. You were not rejected because you lacked value. Sometimes people walk away because they cannot recognize the greatness God placed inside you. Heaven says stop chasing validation from those who were never assigned to understand your purpose. Your worth was never determined by who stayed or who left. God already called you chosen before anyone formed an opinion about you. God is also healing the wounds caused by disappointment. Some prayers were not answered the way you expected. Some dreams fell apart unexpectedly. Some opportunities disappeared after you invested your heart into them. You wondered why God allowed certain doors to close. But heaven says some endings protected you from future destruction. What felt painful at the time was actually divine redirection. Chosen one, your hidden wounds will no longer control your future decisions. The fear, bitterness, insecurity, and emotional heaviness are losing their power over your life. D is replacing pain with peace, confusion with clarity, and sorrow with strength. The healing taking place inside you is preparing you for healthier relationships, wiser decisions, and deeper spiritual growth. Do not rush the process. Healing is not instant for every wound. Some scars require time, prayer, and surrender. But God says every step forward matters. Every moment you choose peace over bitterness is progress. Every time you refuse to return to toxic patterns, healing grows stronger inside you. Chosen one day you will look back at this season and realize God was carefully rebuilding your heart while you thought you were simply trying to survive. The wounds that once made you cry will eventually become proof of how deeply heaven restored you. Your story is not ending in pain. God is healing the hidden places within you so you can walk into your next season whole, stronger, and free. Chosen one, God says the confusion that surrounded your life for so long is finally beginning to break. There were seasons when you questioned your direction, your calling, and even your place in this world. You watched others move forward while you felt stuck in uncertainty. You prayed for signs, searched for answers, and wondered why everything seemed delayed. At times, it felt like you were walking through fog, unable to clearly see where your future was leading. But God says the delay was never meant to destroy you. Heaven was rebuilding your foundation before revealing your next assignment. Many times you asked God to show you your purpose immediately, but you were not yet prepared for the weight of the calling placed upon your life. Purpose is not only about opportunity, it is also about responsibility, spiritual maturity, and character. God had to strengthen your heart before opening certain doors. He had to teach you wisdom before placing greater influence in your hands. The waiting season was not punishment. It was preparation. Chosen one, your purpose became RDR to recognize because pain distracted you from your true identity. Betrayal made you doubt yourself. Rejection made you question your value. Delays made you feel forgotten. The opinions of others slowly became louder than the voice of God inside your spirit. But heaven says your calling never disappeared, even during the seasons when you felt lost. God never changed his mind about you. There were moments when you tried to force things to happen because you feared falling behind. You chased opportunities that were not aligned with your destiny. You stayed connected to environments and people that drained your spirit because you hoped they would eventually bring clarity into your life. But God says confusion often increases when you remain attached to things that no longer match your assignment. Some relationships had to end because they were distracting you from your growth. Some doors had to close because they were leading you away from your divine path. Chosen one, purpose become ease clearer when your spirit becomes quieter. That is why God separated you from certain distractions. Heaven needed your attention again. Sometimes isolation was necessary because noise was blocking your ability to hear God clearly. During lonely seasons, God was teaching you to depend on his direction instead of relying only on external validation. The more your spirit matured, the more your discernment increased. God says your experiences were shaping your assignment all along. The battles you survived were not random. The struggles you overcame gave you wisdom that will one day help others heal, grow, and rise again. Your pain was never meaningless. Everything you endured is becoming part of your testimony. God often uses broken places to create powerful purpose. The areas where you suffered the most are often connected to the areas where you will impact others the deepest. Chosen one, stop comparing your journey to people around you. Not every calling unfolds at the same pace. People discover direction early, while others go through longer seasons of preparation. God says your timing is unique because your assignment is unique. What heaven is preparing for you requires deeper spiritual endurance, stronger faith, and greater wisdom. Do not mistake slow progress for failure. Some of the strongest foundations take the longest to build. As your purpose becomes clearer, your desires will begin to change. Things that once excited you will no longer satisfy your spirit. Certain conversations, environments, and habits will begin to feel empty because you are spiritually evolving. God is aligning your heart with your assignment. You are no longer meant to chase temporary fulfillment when heaven has called you toward lasting impact. Chosen one, clarity is coming step by step. God rarely reveals the entire journey at once because he wants you to walk by faith, not by sight. Each season will uncover another part of your assignment. Each challenge will teach another lesson. Each breakthrough will reveal another level of purpose. Trust the process even when you cannot fully see the destination. God says the reason you survive so much opposition is because your life carries meaning beyond what you currently understand. The enemy attacked your confidence because your future has influence. But no amount of confusion could cancel what God already ordained for your life. Chosen one, your purpose is becoming clearer now because you are finally becoming the person capable of carrying it. The rebuilding happening inside you is preparing you for a season where you will move with confidence, wisdom, and spiritual authority. Soon you will understand why certain things happened the way they did. Heaven was not delaying your destiny. Heaven was preparing you to walk into it fully ready. Chosen one, God says you have been strong for so long that many people forgot you also needed restoration. You carried responsibilities, emotional burdens, disappointments, and silent battles while still trying to encourage others around you. You kept moving forward even when your spirit felt exhausted. There were days when you smiled outwardly, while internally you felt drained, overwhelmed, and close to giving up. But God says heaven has seen every moment of hidden exhaustion, and now a season of restoration is beginning to rise over your life. For a long time, you survived by pushing yourself beyond your limits. You became used to carrying pain quietly because you believed stopping would make you appear weak. But God says exhaustion is not weakness. Even the strongest warriors become tired after constant battles. The pressure you endured would have broken many people, yet you continued fighting through the storms. Heaven honors your endurance, but now God is calling you into a season where your strength will no longer come only from survival, it will come from divine renewal. Chosen one, some of your exhaustion came from carrying things that were never assigned to you. You carried the emotional weight of other people's problems. You worried about situations you could not control. You kept trying to fix relationships that heaven was already asking you to release. Bit by bit, your energy disappeared because your spirit was overloaded with burdens that God never intended for you to hold forever. God says part of restoring your strength requires learning how to let go. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding requires your defense. Not every person deserves continued access to your peace. Heaven is teaching you discernment so you can protect your emotional and spiritual health. Some people only knew how to take from you without pouring anything back into your life. But God says the season of constant emotional draining is coming to an end. There were moments when you questioned why life felt so heavy. You prayed, worked hard, stayed faithful, and still felt emotionally empty. Sometimes you wondered if you had enough strength left to continue your journey. But God says the fact that you are still standing proves that His hand has been sustaining you the entire time. Even during your weakest moments, heaven carried you when your own strength could not. Chosen one, God is restoring more than physical energy. He is restoring your motivation, your confidence, your joy, and your passion for life again. The heaviness that followed you for months or even years will not remain forever. Your spirit is being refreshed. The hopelessness that once clouded your mind is beginning to lift. Slowly you will feel excitement returning. Peace will return. Purpose will return. Sometimes restoration happens quietly before it becomes visible. You may not notice the change immediately, but little by little your heart is becoming lighter. The things that once overwhelmed you emotionally are losing their power. Situations that once caused panic are no longer shaking your spirit the same way. God is strengthening why. Our inner foundation so future storms will not break you easily. Chosen one, God says, stop condemning yourself for needing rest. You are not a machine. You are a human soul that has endured spiritual warfare, emotional battles, and deep disappointments. Rest is not failure. Healing is not laziness. Taking time to recover is part of wisdom. Heaven is teaching you that your value is not based only on how much you produce for others. God is also restoring your spiritual strength. There were seasons when prayer felt difficult because your soul was tired. You wanted to believe again, but disappointment weakened your confidence. Yet even in those moments, God remained close to you. Heaven never walked away from your struggle. Now your connection with God is becoming stronger, deeper, and more personal than before. Your faith is no longer built only on miracles, it is being built through endurance and trust. Chosen one, this restoration season will prepare you for greater assignments ahead. God cannot pour new responsibilities into an exhausted spirit. That is why heaven is rebuilding your energy first. The next season of your life will require confidence, wisdom, focus, and emotional stability. You are being strengthened for what is coming. God says, do not quit now. The tired version of you is fading away, and a renewed version is rising. Soon, people will notice a different strength within you, not the strength of constant struggle, but the strength of someone who has been restored by God Himself. Chosen one, your strength is returning. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because heaven is rebuilding you from the inside out. And when this restoration is complete, you will move forward with greater peace, greater wisdom, and greater power than ever before. Chosen one, God says the person you used to be cannot go where He is taking you next. Something deep within you is changing, and even though you may not fully understand it yet, heaven is transforming your entity from the inside out. The old version of you, the one who constantly doubted themselves, accepted less than they deserved, feared rejection, and stayed trapped in unhealthy cycles, is slowly fading away. This transformation may feel uncomfortable at times because growth often requires separation from old habits, old thinking, and old environments. There was a season when you tolerated things that damaged your peace because you feared being alone. You stayed connected to people who drained your energy because you hoped they would eventually value your heart. You ignored your own needs while constantly carrying the burdens of others. But God says you are no longer the same person emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Your spirit has outgrown what once felt normal to you. Chosen one, the changes happening inside you are not random. God is rebuilding your identity so you can walk confidently into your next season. The old version of you was shaped by pain, fear, disappointment, and survival. You learned how to protect yourself emotionally because life wounded you deeply. You became cautious. You became guarded. Sometimes you even hid your true feelings because you were tired of being misunderstood. But heaven says survival mode is no longer your permanent identity. God is teaching you that your worth is not connected to people's approval. For too long, you questioned your value based on how others treated you. When people ignored you, rejected you, or failed to recognize your heart, you started believing you were not enough. But God says your identity was never supposed to be built on human validation. Your value comes from heaven, not from opinions that change with emotions and circumstances. Chosen one reason this transformation feels lonely is because you are spiritually separating from things that no longer align with your destiny. Certain conversations no longer interest you. Certain environments now feel heavy instead of comforting. Certain relationships, feel distant because your spirit is evolving beyond old patterns. Sometimes growth creates distance between you and people who only knew the old version of you. There may even be moments when others misunderstand your transformation. Some people will call you different because you no longer tolerate disrespect. Others may feel uncomfortable because you stop shrinking yourself to make them comfortable. But God says do not apologize for becoming healthier, wiser, and stronger. Growth often confuses people who benefited from your old weaknesses. Chosen one, God is removing the fear that once controlled your decisions. The old version of you constantly worried about disappointing others, failing, or being abandoned. That fear kept you from stepping fully into your calling. But heaven is rebuilding your confidence. You are beginning to realize that you cannot fulfill your purpose while remaining chained to insecurity and self-doubt. The transformation taking place inside you is already, so changing your desires. Things that once distracted you are losing their appeal. You no longer want temporary peace, you want genuine peace. You no longer crave shallow connections, you desire meaningful relationships. You no longer want to live only for survival, you want to live with purpose and clarity. This is evidence that your spirit is maturing. Chosen one, do not fear the process of outgrowing old versions of yourself. Growth requires release. God cannot fully reveal your future while you continue clinging to the mindset, habits, and emotional patterns of your past. Some parts of your identity must fade away so your true self can emerge. Heaven is not destroying you. Heaven is revealing who you were always meant to become. There were times when you believed your brokenness would define you forever. You thought your mistakes, failures, and painful experiences permanently damaged your future. But God says your past cannot cancel your destiny. The lessons you learned through suffering are now becoming part of your strength. What once weakened you is now making you wiser. Chosen one, the old version of you was built around fear and survival. But the new version God is creating will walk with wisdom, peace, discernment, and confidence. You will no longer beg for acceptance in places where you are not valued. You will no longer shrink your light to avoid making others uncomfortable. You will no longer carry emotional chains that heaven already broke from your life. God says trust the transformation even when it feels uncomfortable. The fading of your old identity is making room for the person you were truly created to become. Soon you will look back and realize that losing your old self was necessary for discovering your real purpose. And when this rebuilding process is complete, you will walk into your future stronger, freer, and more aligned with God than ever before. Chosen one, God says one of the hardest lessons for your spirit to learn has been patience. You have prayed for answers, waited for breakthroughs, and hoped for changes that seemed to take far longer than expected. There were moments when you wondered why heaven felt silent while your heart was desperate for direction. You questioned why certain doors remained closed, why opportunities were delayed, and why life felt like it was moving slower for you compared to others. But God says the waiting season was never empty. Something sacred was happening behind the scenes. Patience is difficult because your spirit naturally wants clarity and movement. You want to know where your life is going. You want confirmation that your prayers are being heard. You want visible proof that things are improving. But God says if every blessing arrived immediately, you would never fully develop the endurance, wisdom, and spiritual maturity needed for your future. Waiting has been shaping you in ways instant success never could. Chosen one, many times you interpreted delay as rejection. You believed God was withholding blessings from you because you were not good enough, strong enough, or worthy enough. But heaven says delays are not always denial. Sometimes God slows things down because the timing is not complete yet. Certain blessings require preparation. Certain doors cannot open until your heart, mindset, and spirit are fully ready to carry what is coming. There were seasons when you became frustrated because you saw others advancing while your own life seemed uncertain. You compared your timeline to people around you and quietly wondered why your journey felt more difficult. But God says comparison steals peace because every assignment has a different process. Some people are called to quick seasons, while others are prepared through deeper refinement. Your path requires patience because your destiny carries weight and responsibility. Chosen one, God is teaching you that patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust. It is choosing to believe even when you cannot yet see the outcome. It is continuing to pray while answers are delayed. It is remaining faithful while circumstances remain unclear. Patience strengthens your relationship with God because it forces you to depend on His wisdom instead of your own timing. The truth is, some things you once prayed for would have harmed you if they arrived too early. Certain relationships, opportunities, and responsibilities required maturity you did not yet have at the time. But heaven protected you through delay. What felt frustrating was often divine protection. God sees the future clearly while you only see the present moment. That is why trusting His timing is so important. Chosen one, the waiting season also revealed what truly lived inside your heart. Delays exposed fears, insecurities, impatience, and emotional wounds that still needed healing. God allowed the process to continue because He cared more about your transformation than temporary comfort. Heaven is building a foundation inside you that will remain strong even after blessings arrive. There were moments when you almost gave up. You became tired of hoping. You grew weary of trying to stay positive while carrying emotional pressure. Sometimes you even wondered whether your prayers mattered anymore. But God says the fact that you are still standing proves your faith survived the storm. Even when your spirit felt weak, heaven continued sustaining you. Chosen one, patience is also teaching you discipline. Not every desire deserves immediate action. Not every opportunity is meant to be chased. God is training you to move with wisdom instead of desperation. The old version of you rushed decisions because of fear and anxiety. But the stronger version of you is learning how to wait for peace, confirmation, and divine direction. God says, stop viewing waiting as wasted time. Some of your greatest spiritual growth happened during seasons where nothing appeared to change outwardly. While you waited, your discernment increased. Your faith deepened, your emotional strength matured, your dependence on God became stronger. The process was preparing you for stability, not temporary excitement. Chosen one, the blessings coming into your life will make more sense because of the patience you developed during difficult seasons. You will appreciate peace differently because you experienced chaos. You will value healthy relationships differently because you survived heartbreak. You will carry success differently because you understand struggle. Waiting has been giving you wisdom that cannot be learned any other way. God says, do not rush ahead of heaven's timing now. Continue trusting the process even when answers feel delayed. The same God who carried you through uncertainty is still guiding your future. What is meant for you will arrive at the right moment, in the right way, with the right foundation beneath it. Chosen one, patience is not punishment. It is preparation. And one day you will realize that the waiting season was building the strength, wisdom, and character needed for the life God had planned for you all along. Chosen one, God says the battles you have faced were not designed to destroy you, they were designed to strengthen your spirit. There was a time when every disappointment deeply shook your emotions. Every rejection felt personal. Every delay created fear within your heart. But after everything you have survived, something inside you is changing. You are no longer reacting the same way to pressure because heaven has been building endurance within you. Your spirit is becoming stronger, wiser, and more stable than ever before. The storms you faced were painful, but they revealed strength you did not know you carried. There were moments when you thought you would completely break under the weight of emotional exhaustion, betrayal, loneliness, and uncertainty. Yet somehow you kept moving forward. Even when your faith felt weak, God continued holding you together. Heaven never allowed the pressure to destroy the purpose inside you. Chosen one, an unshakable spirit is not created during easy seasons. It is built through hardship, endurance, and perseverance. Anyone can feel strong when life is comfortable, but true spiritual strength is revealed when everything around you becomes uncertain. God allowed certain battles because he knew your future would require greater emotional and spiritual stability. The calling upon your life is too important for you to remain fragile in every storm. There was a season when the opinions of others controlled your emotions. Rejection would cause you to question your value. Criticism would weaken your confidence. The actions of people around you often determined your peace. But God says you are learning how to stand firm regardless of external circumstances. Your identity is no longer being built on unstable foundations. Heaven is teaching you to remain grounded even when situations around you change unexpectedly. Chosen every painful lesson increased your discernment. You no longer trust blindly the way you once did. You no longer ignore warning signs just to avoid loneliness. You no longer allow temporary emotions to control permanent decisions. The wisdom you gain through suffering is becoming part of your spiritual armor. What once wounded you is now teaching you how to protect your peace. God says one reason your spirit is becoming unshakable is because you have finally realized that not every battle deserves your energy. In the past, you carried emotional burdens that drained your soul. You fought to explain yourself to people determined to misunderstand you. You chased validation from individuals who were never assigned to appreciate your worth. But now heaven is teaching you emotional discipline. Silence has become strength. Discernment has become protection. Peace has become more valuable than proving yourself. Chosen one, you are also becoming spiritually stronger because you survived. Seasons where you had nobody to depend on except God. The loneliness you experienced forced your spirit to grow deeper roots in faith. During moments when human support disappeared, heaven remained near. Those private battles built resilience inside you. They taught you that even when life feels uncertain, God's presence remains constant. There were nights when fear tried to convince you that your future would never improve. Anxiety whispered that you would remain stuck forever. But God says, look at how far you have already come. The same situations that once overwhelmed you emotionally no longer have the same power over your spirit. This is evidence of growth. You are healing. You are maturing. You are becoming stronger. Chosen one, the enemy attacked your mind, emotions, and confidence because your future carries influence. Weak spirits are easily distracted, easily discouraged, and easily defeated. But heaven is creating stability within you. Future storms will not shake you the same way because you are learning how to remain rooted in faith rather than emotions. God says your peace is becoming stronger than your fear. Your wisdom is becoming stronger than confusion. Your faith is becoming stronger than doubt. The rebuilding happening inside you is creating spiritual endurance that will carry you through future seasons with confidence and clarity. Do not misunderstand the process. Becoming unshakable does not mean you will never feel pain again. It means pain will no longer control your destiny. It means disappointment will not destroy your faith. It means setbacks will not stop your purpose. You are learning how to rise again after every battle instead of remaining trapped in defeat. Chosen one, heaven is preparing you for greater responsibilities, greater blessings, and greater influence. That is why your inner foundation had to become stronger first. God is creating a version of you that will not collapse under pressure, fear, or opposition. Your spirit is becoming unshakable because God is teaching you how to stand firm no matter what life brings. And when this season is complete, you will carry a level of strength, wisdom, and peace that nobody will be able to take away from you. Chosen one, God says the peace you have been searching for is not far from you. For a long time, your heart has carried emotional noise, mental exhaustion, and silent battles that nobody fully understood. You smiled through pain, stayed strong through pressure, and continued moving forward while internally fighting anxiety, fear, and uncertainty. Some days your mind felt overcrowded with worries about the future, unanswered prayers, financial pressure, broken relationships, and situations beyond your control. But God says the season of constant inner chaos is beginning to end. Heaven is rebuilding your peace from the inside out. There were moments when your spirit felt restless even during quiet times. You tried to rest, but your thoughts would not slow down. You kept replaying painful conversations, worrying about tomorrow, and carrying emotional burdens that drained your strength. God says you were never created to live in constant fear and overthinking. The enemy wanted your mind trapped in confusion because peace gives you clarity, and clarity helps you walk confidently into your purpose. Chosen one, peace is more than the absence of problems. Real peace is the ability to remain calm even while storms exist around you. God is teaching you that true peace cannot be built on temporary circumstances. If your peace depends only on people behaving correctly, situations improving quickly, or life becoming perfect, then your emotions will always feel unstable. But the peace heaven is rebuilding inside you is deeper than circumstances. It is rooted in trust. For too long, you carried responsibility for things you could not control. You worried about how everything would work out. You tried to fix every problem, save every relationship, hold everything together at once. Slowly, the pressure exhausted your spirit. But God says some burdens were never yours to carry alone. Part of rebuilding your peace requires surrender. You must release the constant need to control outcomes and trust God with what is beyond your understanding. Chosen one, certain people and environments also disrupted your peace. Some individuals brought confusion instead of comfort. Some conversations filled your spirit with negativity, fear, and emotional heaviness. You kept tolerating draining situations because you hoped things would eventually improve. But heaven says protecting your peace is now necessary for your growth. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your emotions and energy. God is teaching you discernment during this season. You are beginning to recognize what strengthens your spirit and what weakens it. The old version of you stayed connected to chaos because it feared loneliness, but the stronger version of you now understands that peace is more valuable than forced relationships and unhealthy attachments. Sometimes walking away from confusion is part of healing. Chosen one, there were nights when anxiety felt louder than faith. You feared the future because too many disappointments had already wounded your heart. Delays made you restless. Unanswered prayers created frustration. Unexpected setbacks made you question whether things would ever improve. But God says your story is not ending in confusion. Heaven is restoring calmness inside your soul little by little. The rebuilding of peace often happens quietly. It begins when you stop fighting battles that no longer deserve your energy. It grows when you stop replaying painful memories repeatedly in your mind. It becomes stronger when you learn to trust God even without having every answer immediately. Peace is not built through control, it is built through surrender and faith. Chosen one, God is also rebuilding your peace by healing your inner wounds. Some anxiety came from past experiences that taught you to expect disappointment. Some fear developed because betrayal damaged your ability to feel emotionally safe. But heaven is restoring your heart so you no longer live in survival mode. You are learning that not every season will hurt you the way previous seasons did. God says your future requires a peaceful spirit. The blessings, opportunities, and responsibilities ahead of you cannot be managed through constant emotional chaos. That is why heaven is strengthening your inner stability first. A peaceful mind makes wiser decisions. A peaceful heart hears God more clearly. A peaceful spirit remains focused even during uncertainty. Chosen one, do not return to places, habits, or relationships that constantly steal your peace. You have fought too hard to heal. Protect what God is rebuilding within you. Your calmness is sacred. Your emotional stability matters. Your spiritual health deserves care and attention. Soon, you will notice the difference within yourself. Situations that once triggered fear will no longer control you. Delays that once created panic will no longer shake your confidence. The peace God is placing inside you will become stronger than the pressure around you. Chosen one, heaven is rebuilding your peace because your next season requires clarity, wisdom, and emotional strength. And when this restoration is complete, you will walk through life differently, not controlled by fear, anxiety, or confusion, but guided by a deep inner peace that only God can give. Chosen one, God says you are standing closer to your new season than your emotions are currently telling you. For a long time, it may have felt like nothing was changing, like prayers were delayed, like doors were locked, and like your efforts were not producing visible results. But heaven says change is already in motion, even if your natural eyes cannot fully recognize it yet. What you called waiting was actually preparation. What you call delay was divine alignment. What you called silence was God building something stronger in your life than you expected. There were moments when you felt stuck between where you have been and where you are supposed to go. The past still echoed in your thoughts, while the future felt uncertain and unclear. But God says you are not stuck, you are transitioning. And transitions often feel uncomfortable because they sit between endings and beginnings. You are no longer who you used to be, but you are not yet fully operating in who you are becoming. That in-between space is where God is actively rebuilding your life. Chosen one, your new season is not random. It is directly connected to everything you have survived. Every tear, every disappointment, every betrayal, every lonely night, and every silent prayer has been shaping the foundation for what is about to come. God says nothing you went through was wasted. Even the moments that broke your heart were used to strengthen your spiritual character. Your story is not defined by what hurt you, it is defined by how heaven is transforming that pain into purpose. There were times when you almost gave up on believing things would get better. You questioned whether your effort mattered. You wondered if your prayers were reaching heaven. But God says the fact that you are still here is proof that your journey is not over. The enemy tried to convince you that your story had reached its limit, but heaven never agreed with that ending. Your life still carries unfinished chapters filled with purpose, growth, and divine fulfillment. Chosen one, your new season will not look like your old cycles. The patterns that once repeated in your life are breaking. Situations that once drained you will no longer have access to your peace. Relationships that once confused you will no longer hold the same influence over your emotions. God is removing what no longer aligns with your destiny so you can walk forward without unnecessary weight. There is a shift happening in your spirit where things that once felt heavy will begin to lose their control over you. You will start noticing that your reactions are different, your mindset is stronger, and your emotional stability is improving. This is because heaven is preparing you to handle what is coming. The new season requires a stronger version of you, one that is not easily shaken, distracted, or discouraged. Chosen one, God says, do not interpret the current stillness as lack of movement. Some of the biggest breakthroughs begin quietly before they become visible. Behind the scenes, connections are being aligned, opportunities are being prepared, and doors are being positioned for your arrival. What looks delayed in your life is actually being perfected in timing. There is also a spiritual alignment taking place. God is bringing your heart, mind, and spirit into agreement with your purpose. You are beginning to desire different things, think differently, and move differently because your spirit is evolving. This alignment is necessary because your next season requires clarity, wisdom, and maturity. You cannot walk into elevation carrying confusion from your past. Chosen one, God says the struggle you are experiencing right now is not a sign of defeat, it is the final stage of preparation before transition. Many people quit right before breakthrough because they misunderstand the pressure of preparation. But you are being strengthened, not stopped. You are being refined, not rejected. You are being prepared, not forgotten. Your new season will reflect everything you have been praying for, but it will also reflect everything you have grown into. God does not only give blessings, He also prepares people to sustain them. That is why this rebuilding inside you has been so deep, so detailed, and so intentional. Chosen one, stay steady, stay faithful, stay grounded in what God has been building within you. The doors that once felt far away are now closer than ever. The answers that once felt delayed are already in motion. The transformation you have been experiencing is not random, it is the evidence that your new season is approaching. God says very soon you will look back at this moment and realize you were never stuck. You were being positioned. And when your new season fully arrives, you will understand why every step of the journey was necessary to bring you here.